Hey everybody. So I wanted to jump on here and just share kind of a transparent moment for myself, but something that I think may help you as you're processing various emotions and just dealing with life and how life be life. And so as many of you know, I recently lost my mom, and it's been a journey of me, learning grief, learning a new language of grief, and just seeing how my mind, my body, my spirit is all activated and reacting to and growing as a result of that grief. And so I want to share an insight with you and explain it. So one of the things that I'm noticing is I have felt more weak and vulnerable and at capacity as a result of grieving than I typically do. I have two examples. One actually happened today, which is why, this video is being kind of created. So I went to the dentist today just for a pretty routine procedure. I had to get a cap placed on a tooth, a permanent cap. And I think they took the temporary off, was putting a permanent one on. And the lady was like, oh, you don't need Novocaine. This is pretty simple. You won't feel any pain. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because y'all know when you have Novocaine, right, it takes forever. Your mouth is like that for hours. So I was like, well, if I don't need Novocaine, I'm cool. But she's doing the procedure, and I'm like starting to feel a lot of pain. And I was like, is this normal? Like, why am I hurting so bad? But here's the thing, y'all. As I started feeling the tooth pain, and I was like taking it, and she was like, oh, it won't be long. I'm like grinning and bearing it. Like, if it's just a little while longer, I'll be okay. But as I was feeling my tooth pain, I started getting super emotional about my mom. Like out of the blue, I started getting extremely sad about my mother to the point where I almost cried in the dentist's office, and I was trying to hold back tears. And I'm like, why am I feeling like this at this moment? It didn't make any sense, but I was in physical pain, and that physical pain opened up a door for me to connect to and experience the emotional pain that I'm always carrying. Hold on to that. So go back about several weeks ago. I don't know if you all saw my post, but my husband and I were in Canada, and we went on this beautiful hike, okay? I posted some videos of me being on this hike. Beautiful mountainous hike in this gorgeous landscape in Canada. Now, y'all know, people who go on a hike, you go down lots of hills. And then when you got to go back to the car, you got to go up the hills. So we hiked for maybe like a couple hours or so. And when it was time to turn around, we're doing our thing. And I started getting out of breath. Now, I'm not in the best of shape, but I'm also not in the worst shape. But I was physically getting tired. I was exerting myself as normal if you're, climbing a hill. But as I'm pushing my body physically to do the physical work of climbing a hill, and I'm huffing and I'm puffing, and you know how the blood rushes to your thighs, and my heart was racing, and my legs were getting sore, because what? I was exercising. It's not deep, right? Like, I didn't think it was a big deal because I have a history of being an athlete, and I've exercised and played sports and danced like my whole life. So I know what it's like to kind of hit a wall and then push through the wall, exert yourself, because most of the time it's mental more than it is physical. So you know how to just like see the spot up ahead. I'm gonna make it to that spot. I'm a woman who trained and ran a marathon, right? So I get it. And this is just like a hill. But what happened back then is what happened again today. As I am pushing myself physically, I got so overwhelmed with sadness that on the hike, I started to cry. And I was like, what is going on? I started to think about my mom. I started to break down. So much so, I told my husband, Mark, I was like, I'm not going to be able to finish this hike. I'm not going to make it back to the car. And I don't know in my mind if I'm thinking like I'm going to get airlifted out of the woods to safety. But in my mind, I was like, I cannot go another step further. And I sat down and I cried. And so I processed that. And one of the things that the Lord was showing me later, because I was like, what happened to me? Why did I get physically exhausted, get physically fatigued, and then tap into deep grief? What God showed me is that I am always carrying the emotional grief of the loss of my mother. Like, even if I'm on Instagram and making a video, even if I'm hanging out with friends and I'm smiling and I'm laughing, even if I'm with my children, the grief, the loss of my mother is right under the surface all the time. All the time. And pushing myself and experience physical pain and exhaustion on a hike and at the dentist, it's almost as if my soul is saying, you can't take another ounce of pain. That I am already at capacity. That I am already maxed out. And so one of the things I've been thinking about and praying through is, what do you do when grief is a very present thing in your life? What do you do? Because you got to live, you got to go to work, you got to raise children, you got to preach, you got to do ministry, you got to be a wife, got to be a mother. How do you function? Well, one of the main things, so that this isn't a 30-minute message, one of the main things, I'll just share one of the main things God has shown me through this, and that is to respect my current limitations. In many ways, grief has weakened me. I'm injured. I'm emotionally injured. And so when I have to do extra stuff, when I have to expose myself to extra pain, when I have to expose myself to extra exhaustion, I'm just tapped out. I'm at capacity. I can't do a lot. And things that would have been easy for me to do, things that were just a part of my normal routine in life, burdens that I would normally carry, stress that I could normally handle, I just don't have as much capacity anymore, and that's okay. And even though I don't have a lot of capacity, what I do have is God. I'm weak, but He's not. He's strong. And I believe that the Lord does for me, does for us, exactly what my husband did on that hike. And what my husband did when I started breaking down and talking crazy, like I'm not going to be able to finish this hike, like call help, is he stopped. He was patient. He spoke lovingly and tender with me. He hugged me, and he allowed me to take breaks. And he walked with me slowly. He didn't rush me. He didn't shame me. He embraced where I was and encouraged me to embrace where I am. And that's just what I want to say. Honor your limitations. Know that you have a loving God who's walking with you through this journey. He's patient. And it's not going to always be like this. But it is like this right now. For me, at least. And maybe you're in that situation and didn't have the language to recognize what's going on with you when you can't take a lot right now. And maybe you've been on the journey of grief for a long time and you get it, and you can testify you're farther along and that it does get better. So anyway, I hope sharing just a little bit of what my own story and experience has helped you. But I thought it was so insightful that the Lord let me have an object lesson of me being weighed down with pain and physical exhaustion and then my grief rising to the surface. And it's just to say, I'm managing as much as I can. And what I can't manage, I can't manage. But I thank God that he's with me in it. He's Emmanuel. And he's my burden bearer. And he carries what I cannot carry. And he's also actually carrying me. That's good news. Amen. Love y'all.